And tonight is basically our final session. And in this session, we are fortunate to have Mr. Isharan to have our speaker, who is the academic dean of Biocon Academy. Mr. S.S. Isharan is a microbiologist by training with overall experience of more than 25 years. Is now as working as an academic dean with Biocon Academy, Bangalore, where he is instrumental in need identification and development of training courses. He also in the interface between the faculty, students, and the subject matter experts at Biocon to unleash the application potential in the industry to enhance the employability of the students. He was the general manager for technology and services business of Biozine and responsible for the biopharmaceutical production training and regulatory services departments before joining Biocon Academy. He was technology manager at Mark Millipore, handling biomonitoring tools, filtration, purification, chromatography, where he published articles in journals in India and Europe and served as scientific contributor for the journal Pharmaceutical Technology Europe. Industry journey started for him with BioMedi, who is the global leader in in vitro diagnostics and industrial microbiology applications. He started his career as a lecturer in industrial microbiology in 1995 at Madurai Kamraj University, where he published technical articles in journals of national and international repute. He has one patent in his credit as a co-inventor and has authored a book, Handbook of Research of Science Education and University Outreach, as a tool of regional development, published by IGI Global USA. Today, he is going to talk about collaborative outreach by industries to promote education and employment leading to domain development. Before I to deliver his lecture, I must mention that recently Adamos University entered a partnership with Biocon Academy, and I'd like to thank you, Mr. Isharan, for this partnership. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now I welcome you for your talk.
No problem. Thank you very much, Dr. Saha, and thank you very much, Dr. Suman, for inviting me into this talk. It is certainly a very nice moment for us to having entered into an agreement with Aramas University School of Life Sciences. So it is a pleasure for us too. And I, for a person, is a very strong believer that this is an ecosystem. So in this ecosystem, everybody has to work together, and we need to see the benefits coming for all of us. So the academia and industry, though it is a separate entity from a micromanagement perspective, but from an overall regional perspective, it is a very small niche of a big and large ecosystem. So certainly I appreciate this partnership as well as these type of initiatives. And before I go into the talk, I really like the term BioNext. For whomsoever has coined this term BioNext, I really praise the idea behind the term BioNext, because again, I, for the one person, always believe that we have to move forward. Nothing should stop us. And whether it is a pandemic situation or it is whatever it may be, things should move on. So I'm a very strong believer of that. So when you say BioNext, I really felt very happy. And these type of headings are very optimistic in nature for everyone who is involved in the biosciences industry. Okay, so give me a second. Let me share my slide and move into the talk. Is my slide visible to you?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. I really request the audience to bear with me with a little bit of background noises here and there if it comes, because I live right in the middle of the city. So always there will be one or the other vehicle moving around. and our locality is right in the middle of the city. So, in spite of the lockdown and curfew, still you will have some vehicles moving around. So, please pardon me for that. And the idea behind the talk, particularly to address the group of people who are involved in the biological sciences, is that we are in a very, very privileged segment. I would like to start my talk with this statement that nobody else can be privileged than anybody who is working in the biological sciences sector, either as a scientist or as an academician or as a part of the industry or as a grooming student. Irrespective of the roles we play, this segment is a very, very exciting segment and very significant segment for the simple reason that whatever we do, small or big, is directly or indirectly saving the lives. It is saving human lives, it is saving veterinary lives, it is saving life at large. So we are in the business of saving lives. So when we are in the business of saving lives, nobody else can take that pride. So the first welcome sentence I would like to keep is that all of us are privileged to be in this field of biology or biosciences as an industry. I'm not just saying this for the sake of saying, because most of the time, you know how the industry works. Whenever we take up a process or whenever we take up a project, either from the research perspective or from the manufacturing perspective or from the development perspective, always we need to keep the end in mind before we do so. So in the larger segment as a domain, we always have very clear idea about what is the trajectory of this entire bioscience industry. There are a lot of myths around, there is a lot of bad mouthing around this biotechnology or biological sciences when compared to information technology, where there is a belief that whomsoever is studying computer sciences, or even if you're not studying computer sciences, still you will get a job in information technology, but which is not true in biological sciences. But I really encourage all of us to understand which is absolutely untrue. Okay, the industry is really wide, it is open, and the opportunities are plenty. Okay, even if you take India as a region, if you actually search and figure out from the job portals, I'm not even talking about experienced people. Even if you keep the search term as freshers, freshers biotechnology, freshers microbiology, freshers zoology, freshers biochemistry, freshers pharmacy, you will find thousands of jobs. Okay, but I wanted to understand, if you, when you are seeing these job advertisements, and if you see the company name and the location, you will find these companies are in Bangalore, they are in Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Sikkim, Baddi, and Haridwar. The reason why I'm taking these names specifically is because these are the industrial hubs for pharma and biopharma industries. So when these are the industry hubs, essentially the job is going to be available there only. So if you are not finding a job next door to you, certainly you have a reason to grip that there is no job available for biotechnologists. But if you are ready to go outside of your city, if you are ready to go outside of your state, then the jobs are plentifully available even for freshers. So there is absolutely no way that anyone can say that the students who are studying biological sciences will not get a job. Everyone will get a job. Absolutely everyone will get a meaningful job, unless otherwise you want to specifically move out of the domain and do any other job other than the core jobs. So when we want to keep something as a trajectory for us, it is very important for us to understand what is the overall scenario in the market looks like, what is the trajectory of the market, and where are these opportunities. So from that perspective, I would like to share some of the statistics with you. When I say stats, I'm not going to talk about numbers. I'm only going to talk about some of the positioning. For instance, in the graph in the left-hand side, this is called as a bubble curve or bubble graph. This bubble chart or a bubble curve is a very, very interesting chart for all of us in the biotechnology industry to understand how the domain works from the overall industry perspective. If you see the size of the bubble denotes the revenue, and the position or the height of the bubble from the base, that shows the growth rate of that particular country. So if you see, the US is having the maximum revenue generation for the reason that the revenue realization end of the day happens in the US. For example, there are a lot of biopharma companies based out of the US, number one. Number two, worldwide, there are a lot of companies who are exporting their products to US, and the revenue realization happens in the US. So naturally, the revenue will be very high in the US. If I take Germany and France together and call it as Europe, then the second largest will be Europe, and the third one will be Japan. This is one of the reasons why whenever we talk about highly regulated market, we are talking about US, Europe, and Japan. That is the reason why in the ICH composition also, ICH refers to International Conference on Harmonization, and the ICH countries are US, Europe, and Japan. This is the reason. And if you actually see the position and the bubble size of India, though it is slightly lesser than China, but if you see, we are almost in around 18-19% in the growth rate. The bubble size can be relatively small, but certainly the growth opportunity, if you see, the way we are growing is really, really very high. And particularly for the type of business we are talking about, the tune of revenues we are talking about, the growth rate is really very high. What does this growth rate means to you as a student? The growth rate means more opportunity. How this growth happens? This growth happens in three ways. Number one, expansion of the older companies in India. Number two, mergers and acquisitions between the foreign country and a foreign company and the Indian company. And number three, outsourcing of the work by the foreign companies into Indian companies. These are the three ways this type of growth is happening. But 5 years before, Indian government, I'm not talking about any specific government here. In general, I'm talking about Indian government. Indian government realized that this is a very good growth, but not a quality growth. The reason is, if any country stops outsourcing their work into growing countries like India, this bubble will fall at any time, or the bubble will burst anytime. This is the reason why the Indian government took a very, very cautious step of two things. Number one, foreign direct investment, and number two, supporting the startup ecosystem. Because of the foreign direct investment, the temporary amalgamations, the temporary associations have become permanent mergers. Sometime back, I don't know if you know about a company called as Ranbaxy. Now, if you actually think, Ranbaxy is not there, but it has become Daiichi Sankyo. Long back, there was a company called as Nicholas Piramal. Now, Piramal is not there. Piramal has become Abbott. Sometime before, you had a company called as Dabur Pharma. This Dabur Pharma is no more. Dabur Pharma has now become Mylan. But these are the conversions. These are the mergers and acquisitions. Because of the mergers and acquisitions, the capacity of these companies have really enlarged or expanded. Because of the capacity increase, the manpower demand also increased. Because of the manpower demand increase, there is a very high opportunity for the freshers and the experienced people to join into these companies. This is exactly how these type of opportunities is resulting in the job opportunities for all of us who are listening to this particular session. So this is on one side. If I focus this entire thing into India, how the composition looks like, from biotechnology perspective or from a bioscience market perspective, the major revenue comes from biopharma. That is 64% of the revenue is coming from biopharma, and the bioservices contribute about 18%. I'm not including the pharmaceutical companies into this segment. I'm talking only from biopharma and biologics perspective. Those companies who are into therapeutic protein manufacturing and vaccine manufacturing. Only biotech and biologic companies I'm talking about. So in this type, biopharma is the major contributor and 18% bioservices. I'll come to this segment a little later in the slide. So if you combine these two, more than 80% is coming from the biopharma industry and services segment. Bioagri, bioindustry, and bioinformatics are contributing to the rest of the curve. Bioinformatics is a very, very interesting component of this entire biotechnology segment. I'll give the details in this slide. If I further narrow down into the biotechnology market, the biopharma market itself. Now, this biotechnology market has major 5 segments. First one is the biopharma segment. In biopharma segment, you have vaccines, that is recombinant therapeutic proteins, protein manufacturers like Biocon or Reddy's Laboratories, and so on. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay,
yes,
okay, wonderful. I just wanted to randomly, no problem. I just want to randomly check that. No problem. So the biopharma is a very, very interesting space, which is a composition of recombinant therapeutic proteins. The big players like Biocon or Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Intas, Lupin Laboratories, all these players are there. For the benefit of the young participants, I would like to mention the locations also, like Biocon in Bangalore or Dr. Reddy's Laboratories in Hyderabad, Lupin Laboratories in Pune, or Intas in Ahmedabad. The reason why I specifically wanted to say these names is because these are the places where you have jobs, plenty of jobs, okay, available for the bioscience students. Then vaccine manufacturers. Now, no need to say the names like Bharat Biotech or Serum Institute. In news, everybody has seen these 2 names widely now. Because of the COVID vaccine, Covishield and Covaxin, right? So vaccine manufacturers like Serum Institute of India, who is in Pune, and Bharat Biotech in Hyderabad. And then the diagnostics. I'm not talking about diagnostic kit manufacturers. I'm talking about large-scale biotechnology diagnostic companies like Jayamitra or Specialty Ranbaxy and so on. And then you have a service segment called as bioservices. So the bioservices is a very, very unique domain. The reason why I'm saying this is unique is because there were students at one point in time, 5 years before, 6, 7 years before, there are a lot of biotechnology students who were absorbed into these type of segments like CROs. CROs are contract research organizations who started hiring the biological sciences students for the pharmacovigilance job, for the clinical data management job, for the biosafety job, and so on. So this is a very, very important one. So there is no need for any specific computer-related knowledge here. Just you need a biological background or bio degree or a post-graduation. If you have a bio post-graduation, then they will train you into those areas, and then you will be ready for a job in about 6.7 months and start delivering. Another very interesting segment is CRAMS, that is contract research and manufacturing solutions. These are the smart ones, where they do the contract research, clinical development, and small-scale manufacturing for the companies who are using them as the capacity sharing companies or contract manufacturing organizations, CMOs. So altogether, this segment is called as CRAMS. For example, Kemble in Bangalore is a large CRAMS model. Then you have bioagri. I know all of you know about the hybrid seeds and the genetically modified organisms. There are a lot of conflict around the genetically modified organisms. Please don't fall for all these type of conflicts. As a science person, I want all of us to understand anything that comes to market comes through a scrutiny. It is not going to be sold. Then the product is unsafe for the human consumption. It will not be allowed for the human consumption by the government. Okay, so please don't get carried away with all these false propaganda around the genetically modified organisms. If you want to think about it, I know all of you know about recombinant technology. And also I know all of you, you know about insulin. If you have anybody in your family who is using insulin, this insulin is coming from a recombinant yeast. Yeast doesn't have a natural capacity to produce insulin. Okay, it is a recombinant yeast. So when a genetically modified organism is producing insulin, and if you are ready to take it, and it is proven safe, please be informed that a genetically modified brinjal or a genetically modified cotton is not going to keep or not going to face any harm to you. Okay, as long as it is scrutinized, absolutely there is no problem in having genetically modified organism in the market. Biopesticide and biofertilizers, this is just a reinvention of wheel. Our grandfathers and our forefathers absolutely knew the technology of rearing or culturing the green ponds. Now we are struggling. Actually, now we do not know the correct technology. The biotechnologists and bioengineers are struggling to keep 3,000 liters or 3,000 acres open pond for a single cell algae. But long back, about 100 years back, 200 years back, there were green ponds naturally available. And our forefathers are able to clearly understand how to protect these type of ponds and how to use it for the agricultural purposes. So biopesticide and biofertilizers are reinvention of field. Only thing is that we are now able to mass cultivate all these organisms. Bioindustry is nothing but the use of enzymes, okay, the manufacturing of enzymes. These enzymes are the replacement for a biocatalysis, which is replacing the chemical catalysis in leather industries, textile industries, and so on. Novozymes, if you want to know the name of the company, who is the brand leaders, or it can be Richcore Life Sciences in Bangalore. These are the brand leaders in the biological enzymes. And then you have alternative fuels. This is exactly what I was talking about, the 3,000 acres open pond for a single cell algae for beta-carotenoid production and biohydrogen production. If you want to know the name of the company, it is Reliance Life Sciences. Reliance Life Sciences has put up a 3,000 acre open pond for single cell algae cultivation in Jamnagar, Gujarat. Okay, so if you can imagine, who else other than a biotechnology engineering or biotechnology students or any biological students can understand the dynamics of cultivating algae? Okay, can a mathematician do that? Can a physics person do that? I'm not demeaning them. At the same time, we have a domain specialty and we need to really capitalize on our domain specialty. Okay, so these are the important subsegments in bioindustrial, and then you have bioinformatics. This is exactly what I told you in the last slide. I'll take a couple of minutes to discuss because these are creating very exciting jobs. Okay, gone are those days where we used to do all the things in vitro and then do the proof of concept also in vitro and then actually come to in vivo studies. This is completely gone now. Now, around 50% of the research is in silico. The first 50% is in silico, up to proof of concept, it is in silico using bioinformatics tools, and then transform the in silico data to validation of proof of concept. After proof of concept, you get into the delivery systems. So the way the research is approached in the biological segment is completely transformed. In the last slide, I would like to really take you through what are the specific skills we are talking about in this particular segment. And you have integrated research applications and biotech software services. This is very, very interesting thing now. There are people like GE, and even General Motors, GM. These people are hiring, or Siemens, for instance. These are hardcore electronics people or instrumentation people, instrumentation companies. These companies are hiring students with biological background. The reason is they are hiring them as application specialists for the chromatography system they are manufacturing, the pH meter they are manufacturing, the spectrophotometer they are manufacturing. At earlier times, if you remember, we used to buy the spectrophotometer and one person will come and install. If you ask any one question to that person, he will simply say, I don't know anything about what you're asking. I know how to install this, that's all. That era is gone. Now, if you ask the person who is coming and installing your spectrophotometer, you will absolutely surprised to see he will exactly say, what is the lambda max for the given protein? What is the lambda max for DNA? Because he is a MSc biotechnology person. Okay, so this is the transformation which is happening because of the bioinformatics revolution. So this is the segment we are talking about. So this segment is a very, very exciting segment. And if this segment to be very successful, it is very important to have three wheels absolutely aligned to each other. The first wheel and the very significant wheel is the government. The government should have a very amenable policies and funding policies which will transform this entire industry to a job seekers to job givers. This is very, very important. Because how much ever you do the amalgamations, how much ever you do the contract research, end of the day, new companies have to come into the market. If new companies come into the market, and then over a period of time, if these new companies become large organizations, that is how indigenized growth will happen. So this should happen through the government initiatives. Academia should really play a very, very vital role in creating a very strong intellectual property, because academia is the place where the student doesn't have the unbounded research capability. Even the R&D of the independent organization has a binding, because they have a binding of time, they have a big binding on regulations. So without these type of binding, if somebody wants to do a research, they can do only in the academics. Creating a very strong intellectual property is one of the objectives of academia. New knowledge, new idea creation, and new concept creation should absolutely come from the academia. The reason is, if the idea is a product or a solution, then it becomes easy for the lab to market transition. The lab to market transition hand-holding should be done by the industry, and the industry should support the transition from job seekers to job-ready young talents, and creating a very strong opportunity for the young talent who is coming out from the academia. This is exactly what Biocon Academy is doing. In the introduction, that is exactly what, as Dr. Saha was mentioning, people like me are doing. We are interfacing the academia and the industry and finding out how to unleash the biological talents who are interested to do their career in the industry and into the research. And we are trying to help them out in finding meaningful jobs. This is exactly the portion of the ecosystem we are playing. For us to do that, it is very important that the key benefits has to be realized. The key benefits of the academia industry partnership relationship should be understood. The academia has a very, very important gathering, which has the social responsibility, the appropriate education background, and the research acumen. When these three things are available, this has to be transformed into the socially responsible employees by the industries, and the education should be converted to talent, and the research should be converted to innovation. This is exactly how the segments from the academia should be exploited by the industry. That is the reason why I was specifically talking about the outreach of the industry for the domain development with handholding of academia. So efficient regional development should be our overall achievement, our overall goal, and creating a very specific trained talent pool. I'll come to this point, trained talent pool, in the next slide, and encouraging innovation ecosystem so that each one can be an entrepreneur. Why to actually train these talents? Or these talents are not coming industry ready? This is a very, very important question we always have, because sometimes the freshers, they say the industry is not hiring us because we are freshers. When you are a fresher, you have the qualification. Okay, but what industry is looking for is the skill. Now we need to find out, is qualification is directly equal to skill? Maybe or may not be. There are doubts between these two. The education is providing or is creating a knowledge, and this knowledge has to be transferred to skills, because skill is the application. How the society is the skill. So now I would like to specifically talk about what is the gap we are talking about, why the education is not directly equivalent to skills. Number one, in the academia, as an education system, what we are doing or how we are learning. We are learning through a experimentation-based learning. When I say experimentation-based learning, for example, if you are a student from biological sciences background, you might have done an experiment to prove or to demonstrate fermentation. It is very simple. You just take a sugar-containing medium, you add yeast and close the conical flask, put it into the incubator, or even if you can keep outside, and wait for 5 days and take sample and do the titer of ethanol. If you find ethanol, that means that the yeast which you have inoculated has converted the sugar in the medium to ethanol. So the fermentation has happened. Now the question is, are you going to use that ethanol to create a hand sanitizer? if you are going to use that ethanol, which you are going to prepare as a part of your hand sanitizer, will you not check whether the ethanol production is as per your expectation every day? Every day, will you not take the sample and find out, is there any contamination? Is the yeast which I inoculated is still remaining uncontaminated? Because in experimentation-based learning, the output of the first experiment is not the input of the second experiment. Whereas when it comes to industry, the output of the first unit operation is the input for the second unit operation. This is the reason why I want all of us to understand, whenever you are studying any scientific principles, please connect it to an application. When you start thinking from an application perspective, what happens is that whatever you are studying becomes meaningful. When everything, whatever you are studying is meaningful, your study is not a burden at all, because you know that you are going to use it, right? So this is the very important gap between, or the perceived gap, which is not allowing us to think that the education is directly equivalent to the skills. The second one is directly related to the first one, that is application-based curriculum. In the curriculum, we are studying a lot of principles. For example, we study chromatography. When we study chromatography, we always study what are the different types of chromatography. When we study about liquid chromatography, are we also connecting liquid chromatography is the principle which is converted to a technology called as HPLC. How HPLC functions using liquid chromatography as a basic principle. This is exactly what I was calling or talking about as an application-based curriculum. So these are the next level of thinking. The days are gone where we have studied for the marks. Your CGPA is important, your percentage is important. I am not denying the point. But at the same time, the knowledge what you are gaining should be absolutely application-based learning. Third, it is very, very important to have a very good passion towards the subject. If you study the subject passionately, naturally you will be involved in the studies what you are doing. And it will convert you into a committed talents. Most of the time, industry is looking for these type of talents. You might have seen that the class toppers are the not ones who are getting jobs immediately. There are people who are in the average level who get the job immediately before the class toppers. The reason is industry or anybody is looking for a very committed, passionate talent. Okay. And the last one is that in the college, most of the time, what we have told that individual student mark is very important. Your percentage is important. Your CGPA is important. But when it comes to industry, even you lose your name. To that extent, you have to be a team player. Sometimes you are called as a production person. Sometimes you are called as a quality person. Even people will not call you by name. They will call you by the team names. That extent, you will become a team player. So it is a very important psychological transformation you have to make from an individual to a team player. So these are the things which we need to gather. These are the skills we need to gather to become industry ready, so that at one point in time, you will realize that the education is directly equivalent to skills. For that, what we need to do is very simple. You need to have a clear idea about what you are today. And then you need to understand where you want to be. It's very person or a R&D person or a quality person or a clinical research person, whatever you want to be. You just download the job description from Naukri.com, Indeedcareer.com, any website, and read through it and find out whether you will be able to deliver to this job. If you think you can deliver to 20%, the remaining 80% is your action plan. For you to become eligible for an industry job, this remaining 80%, you should become eligible. You should deserve yourself, deservable. You should make yourself deservable. For you to do that, you may have to read more, you have to refer more, you have to understand more. This is the very simple logic to get a job into the industry. So you need to have a clear action plan for your future. I'm not only talking about industry. You can become an academician, you can become a research person, whatever it is. For you to get there, you need to have a clarity on what is the expectation in the target area. Once you know the expectation, you can understand where you are today and where you want to be, and then create an action plan. Before your studies are over, you should able to get through all your action plans. So when you get through the action plans, what is important? You don't have to really depend on the industry to give you a job, because the education, research, and industry and innovation, as I told you, are interlinked. When these type of interlink is available, and when the government is really supporting the formation of center of excellence by the industries into the academic institutions, and supporting lab to market movement or the transition through the incubation centers, or creating innovative service portfolios. If your idea is a service, then you can absolutely incubate that idea and create a service portfolio. Thereby, you will become a job ready person. You don't have to really seek for a job. Rather, you can become a job giver. Okay. To end the session, as a concluding remarks, the reason specifically why I said the term BioNext was so attractive to me is because we are very old. Okay, I'm not talking about from the age perspective. Don't read me wrong. Okay, I am purely talking from technology perspective. Even today, if you want us to do a drug discovery, again we will go back to the acrylamide gel electrophoresis, or we will go back to PAGE or agarose gel electrophoresis for the separation. Those days are gone. Okay, now you are all new era students and generation. For this type of generation, what is more important is that you need to understand what is revolutionizing this market. Number one, artificial intelligence. Number two, machine learning. Number three, deep learning, or the natural language processing. So these things are actually revolutionizing the way we approach the discovery, okay? The way we do the research. So the bioinformatics tools plus the AI tools are actually revolutionizing the way we approach either the research or development of the drug. Earlier, we were completely working on structure-based discovery, and we were reinventing the wheels again and again and again. But now the opportunity has come to your generation to start doing evidence-based discovery. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Using artificial intelligence, you will be able to extrapolate the new things from the existing data, from the historical data. For you to do that, whether you are studying zoology, or you are studying botany, or you are studying biotechnology, microbiology, or biochemistry, it really doesn't matter. If you really augment your studies with C, C++, Java, or Python, I'm not talking about everything. One or combination of one more will actually fetch you a new generation job for all of you. So this is exactly the next in the biosciences. So to conclude this, I would like to quickly review the key messages what we were talking about. The protective policies to encourage the academia industry relationship as a specific interface for the domain development, sustained the startup ecosystem. It is very, very important that the government has started supporting the startup ecosystem, but this has to be a sustained effort from the government perspective. From the students' perspective, my sincere request to all of you is that please look into the career as an application-based career, not just a theory-based career. You need to create a passion and commitment towards the subject so that you are becoming a committed workforce tomorrow. Commitment will not come along with your job offer, along with your appointment letter. It is your nature. Commitment is your nature. Passion is your nature. It cannot be developed. Okay? If you develop this today, then when you are becoming an employee, automatically you will be a passionate employee or a committed employee. Then you will be successful in the career. Bring out innovative ideas for product and services. This is very, very important. This young generation absolutely should bring about out of the box disruptive technologies onto the table, so that you have innovative ideas and products and services to solve a lot of problems in this industry. And from the systems perspective, it is very important that you utilize the trained talent pool. When I say system, I'm specifically talking about the industry. Industry should utilize the trained talent pool that is coming out from the academia. It should support the innovative ecosystem, take product services from lab to market. This hand holding is very, very important, because this hand holding is the one which has proven to be instrumental in the past, in today's generation, as well as in the future. So best of luck for all the people who are listening to this conference. And I really wish best of luck for this conference. And I know this is the third day and the last day of the conference. I know that a lot of knowledge sharing that has happened in last 3 days. It is very, very important that you need to have a clarity in your notebook saying, these are my take-home messages, number one. Number two, what are the things I'm going to do from what I learned from this conference? This application transformation is very important for the success of this type of conferences. Thank you very much for all the people who interested me and invited me into this conference. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful deliberation. And looking at the magnitude and the number of questions from students, I hope that they have thoroughly enjoyed, and that would definitely be a very important journey. It would contribute in the journey of their days ahead. So if you allow, I would take up a few questions from the students.
Please.
A question that has popped up saying that how much is the biotech startups investing on research and development? Because finance is often a problem for startups, so they're interested in knowing these things.
Wonderful. May I know who asked this question?
This is asked by Animika, a student of BTech Biotechnology of Adams University.
Animika, for your information, you don't need any seed or capital fund to start a company. That is the first good news I would like to give to you. There is no need for money at all. Okay. Indian government has really understood the way to support the startup ecosystem, or to support the startup ecosystem. If you just Google out what are the incubation centers, biotech incubation centers in India, then go into the details. You will see 3 things are available for the youngsters to start their new company. Number 1, money. Number 2, space. Number 3, resource. Resource includes time. Okay. So these 3 things are important for starting any company. All these 3 supports comes free of cost to you as a part of your incubation center. Okay. Only thing is that your idea of as a service or your product should be feasible. Okay. For you to do the feasibility study also, you will able to actually do this in this center itself.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir, for the answer. Just to complement to the answer, supplement to the answer, let me say that Adams University has already come up with an incubation center, and very shortly we are expected to go to the full-fledged incubation center and a specific unit for the biotechnology division also. So it's not yet in the place to announce, but still I am just sharing for everyone's knowlege that very soon we are going to come up with a separate entity of biotechnology based entrepreneurship center, and the incubation center is already functionalized. Thank you, sir. Thank you. The next question has come up. Actually, a couple of people have asked this question to say something about the specialization they require maybe after their graduation or post-graduation.
Okay, that's exactly what I was talking about as a part of the skill development. The first thing you need to do is the understanding the trajectory. When I say understanding the trajectory, you don't have to have a clarity of which company you are going to join. But at least you need to understand whether you are going to get into industry, whether you want to get into academia, or you want to get into research. Only this much information is very, very important to have. This much amount of clarity is very important to have. Once you have this, then find out what is that you want to gain as a knowledge specific to the domain. For example, if you want to be in the domain of research, it is very important that you do a couple of certification courses. The first certification course is the IPR, okay, intellectual property right. Because sometimes what happens is that you might have hit into a panel box. You might have hit into a new, completely a new molecule. You don't even know how to protect it from the legal side, how to actually protect it using the legal facility, how to have your own rights on that particular molecule. Okay, so when you have a degree plus a very useful supplement or very useful additional degree, additional certificate courses like IPR, or if you want to get into the research, then if you have R, for example, R language as your certificate, then it becomes easy for you to really start your career from the data mining perspective. It is going to be very useful for your research. Or tomorrow, if you want to get into AI platform, if you have Python, that is going to be very useful for you. Okay? If you want to be in academia, then you have to start preparing for NET or in your state level education exams and so on. If you want to get into the industry, then you have to find out from the industry perspective, what is the expectation. So once you have a clarity on these three major branches, where you want to start your career, then it becomes easy for you to augment a lot of things to your degree. That is how it is happening. And in addition to that, there are a couple of initiatives government is doing. For example, if you want to get into industry, you can also, as soon as you complete your biosciences degree, you can apply for BCIL program. That is Biotech Consortium India Limited, BCIL program, which is part of DITP initiative. So BCIL, if you apply, 6 months, you will get internship in any of the industry. Then also you can make a informed decision whether you want to continue in the industry.
Thank you, sir, for the insight. Just to add a few more questions, I know that students are pouring in questions. One question has come up. It's a quite interesting question that often students think of joining a job and then come back to entrepreneurship, and a few areas of startups they want to know. So your views on this, sir?
Again, this is little old thought for your information. Those who are really don't want to take a risk, they want to first have a hang of how the industry works, and then you go out and start your own. If 100 people join the industry with that thought, maybe 1 or 2 go out. Most of the time they settle in the job, and 1 or 2 promotions if you see, then you are planning towards your retirement. Okay, so please do not get into this trap. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do it. If you want a live example for you to follow, you follow Kiran Majumdar Shah. She did not go to any industry to learn how to start an industry and function industry to create a 1 billion regiment, 1 million company, worth company. Okay, so startups are generally successful, particularly when you don't know anything about the industry. That level of ignorance is very, very helpful for you, so that you are absolutely fearless.
Thank you, sir. Just last question I would take.
Answer your second.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Doctor. There was second part to this question, like in which area to start. The first and foremost area today to start is the data. Data is the biggest area today. Okay, any biodata based industry, okay, is the key for any startup companies. Okay, because this gives a quick win. You will become a millionaire company in a very short duration. 3 years, 5 years duration, you become a millionaire company. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Just the last question, a few queries or observations from the faculty members about some skill enhancement courses to be designed by industry. How do you think that they can sharpen the career of a student? And last question from my side would be, what is your views on COVID vaccines as well as attempt to find medicine for COVID-19? Your views, sir.
Okay. I'll take one by one. First one first is regarding the faculty. Yes, it is very, very interesting and encouraging to see the young faculty clearly think that they also need to be trained. So this is really encouraging, because most of the times, particularly I come from the old school of thought, where I started my career about 20 years before in Madurai Kamaraj University. So when I started my career 25 years before in Madurai Kamaraj University, first 5 years has been my lecturership. So at that time, most of the time you will see that the faculty have a very strong belief that they don't have to be trained on anything. Okay, but in today's condition, it is very, very encouraging to see that this thought is happening. I would really encourage the faculty to look for industry called for faculty development programs, because faculty development programs run by IITs or the faculty development program run by another university is really encouraging, no doubts about it. But if you want to know about the dynamics of the industry, then it is a good idea for you to look for industry called for faculty development program. One such is available with Biocon itself. Some of the lot of faculty have already undergone. More than 80 faculty have already undergone the training through faculty development program run by Biocon. So that is the answer for the first portion of it. And second portion of it, it is as good as the genetically modified organism. The answer remains the same. Please do not get carried away by any of the misconceptions that is spread around the COVID vaccines. Okay, please remember that the regulatory agencies has two types of pathways. One is called as the regular pathway, another one is called as the accelerated pathway to approve the drugs or vaccines into the market. Sometime back, if you remember, we went through an influenza strike and then your flu strike, or then into your SARS strike. Okay, when all this influenza virus strike, when we went over Ebola also, Ebola strike we went through. When these things are happening, when H1N1 was identified, we did not wait for 3.5 years to manufacture the vaccine, to come out with the vaccine. At that time also, the vaccine was brought about within 1 year. The only difference is that those viruses are not as deadly as these viruses. That is the reason why the stigma is around this type of diseases. And this is also the reason why only difference is the population size and the duration. If we wait for 3.5 years to come out with the regular pathway, then at least 20% of the population would have been compromised. So when you actually look into the cause and effect perspective, it is better to stop the cause when you have even less effective from the output perspective. These two vaccines, Covaxin and Covishield, is providing 95% protection from the mutant strain as well as from the native strain. So it is very, very important that all of us need to believe and
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful insight. And definitely we as faculty members, as well as the students, will definitely be in depth to you for this wonderful session. I thank you on behalf of Adams University, the School of Life Science and Biotechnology, and the organizing committee of BioNext. We hope that next time when we meet, it would be a better situation and we would be able to rejuvenate everyone to do research, to come to the path of life science and biotechnology for the benefit of humanity and society. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.